Welcome to the Safe, Secure, and Empowered 24/7 podcast, where we talk about how to protect yourself, your business, and your team from unforeseen events. We will interview and chat with professionals on a variety of topics concerning personal safety. I hope you tune in to learn more as we hear from those helping you and businesses stay safe should an unpredictable incident occur.
Hello, I am Rita Peter, one of your hosts here at Parker IoT Solutions, and thank you for joining us and welcome to another episode of Safe, Secure, and Empowered 24/7 podcast. We are passionate about keeping you safe, and there are a couple of different tools that we try to get in your hands to do that, and one of those I'm just going to briefly touch on. I'm not going to stay here a long time, but I welcome you to click on the link and visit our website. But we offer as a reseller a safety app called Savu, or sometimes you might hear say Save You because that's what it does. But it's an app that's right on your smartphone, your smartwatch, and if you ever find yourself in an emergency situation, you can just open the app, or if every second counts and you cannot do that, it's voice activated, or you can just simply shake the phone and help will be on the way to your location. So we encourage you to check that out. Another way that we enjoy keeping you safe is by bringing you different situations of safety and people that have experienced some such scenarios that they have been unsafe in. And so we have been talking about global issues such as MMIW, which is missing and murdered Indigenous women. We've talked about commercial sexual exploitation of children and human trafficking. And so while we are excited to provide a safety app, we also love the fact that we can add that layer of security to you, but also just to bring to you the tool of knowledge so that you are aware what is going on, and that you can use this as preventative measures. It's great to have an app to help, but to know what's going on, to keep yourself safe and to possibly save the life of someone else. So we enjoy doing that for you. And so we want today to welcome to the podcast a beautiful, beautiful soul by the name of Kathy Givens. And Kathy, she's going to share her story. She is a survivor of human trafficking. So Kathy, welcome today to the podcast. We are so thankful to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. Just to sit here really and to hear those words roll off my tongue that you are a survivor of something so horrific. It is just, and to know that I'm sharing this podcast with you, I want to say it's such an honor. And I'm just in awe just of everything that you've been through. And we really do appreciate you being here. And so we're looking forward to hearing your story. So we're truly grateful. But you do so much. You equip survivors and you equip the community with tools. And now you are the founder of an organization called 1211. So I want you to just take a moment, and if you want to share some more about yourself, because I know you're an author as well, but if you will just give us an overview of 1211 and also how it got its name.
Yes. Thanks again for having me. Kathy Givens, I go by Kathy Givens, and I have the honor of serving as the co-founder and executive director of 1211 Partners. I'm also an overcomer of trafficking, as you stated. And 1211 Partners is a nonprofit that was created to literally partner with survivors and overcomers of trafficking who are on their journey from surviving to thriving. And we do that through, fostering a community around these individuals and through our mentorship program. And we also do something very unique, and that's outreach and awareness through the arts. to specifically underserved populations and marginalized communities. And so we empower those communities and empower individuals who have been trafficking on their way to overcoming. And it's a beautiful journey. So we see ourselves more so as partners than we are just a nonprofit organization. The name 1211 Partners comes from Revelation 12:11, and in that verse, in that scripture, it says that we overcome by our testimonies, the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies. And the testimony piece is what speaks directly into 1211. As we're partnering with these individuals, they're absolutely sharing their stories with the world, and their journey with each other, and inspiring others to keep going. And so that's why we went with 1211.
1211. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. And you said they share their stories now. Is that through the productions or the plays you do? Is one avenue?
So because we're so embedded in the arts, what we do is give opportunities and the platform to share their stories and their experiences uniquely in a creative way. So that's through monologues, that's through stage plays, film, all of the things, poetry, all of the things that you can think of, because we just really believe in healing through the arts.
Oh, that's beautiful. And so I love stuff like that. Is that something what area does that take place? Is that do they travel and do this, or is this kept in a certain city, or how does that work? Or is there a schedule of events for that?
Yeah, it's all individualized, because what we do is individualized. So if we have individuals that are in Houston, primarily we've done it in Houston since that's where we're based, in Texas since that's where we're based. But we have partners and individuals, survivor partners all over the nation now. So like, it just depends on what supports are there in that city. We can do virtual events, and virtual mentorship obviously is something that we do and believe in. So we get really creative. If someone is not boots on the ground in Houston, we get really creative.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. I have a love for the arts, and our family has been in some short films and production as well. So I might have to watch out and see if I can catch one of those. That'd be neat, a treat to see. So I thank you for sharing this about your organization, just and everything that you do partnering. I know you've put in a lot of work prior to now to get to where you are. So that is greatly appreciated. And it's beautiful, because I know you give God all the glory for that. So that's special. My goal today is just to expose the plot of the trafficker. And I know you have a unique story, because I think that sometimes there's a misconception of what human trafficking may look like. It's not really just that we have to worry about, if we're walking down a street, we look for a van because someone's going to stuff us in a van, right? So today, my goal is just to have you share your story, what you walked through when you were trafficked, so it helps us to understand and be safer, and to help others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for highlighting that trafficking looks very different for each individual, and it doesn't have a face, right? It doesn't discriminate. And for myself, I did not know what trafficking was before I was trafficked. Obviously, had never heard of it. Probably maybe in movies, but I was not familiar with trafficking, didn't know anything about it. And so for me, it came in the form of a relationship. It was an individual that I was introduced to as a young adult through a mutual friend. Me and that mutual friend are still good friends today. So this person came in and kind of just manipulated everyone.
Oh, wow.
And he was a part of a band, and he was actually the leader of that very well-known band, and locally, and had connections with local celebrities and stuff. And so when he pursued my friends and myself, it was just very innocent at first. It was like, hey, guys, can you guys come hang out with us, right? Like, let's just have a good time, and girlfriends, guy friends, and we'll just hang out, talk, laugh, and we just want to get to know you. That's how the invitations started. Just want to get to know you, just want to hang out with you. As young adults, my friends and I, we were all in school at that time, and so we would have an excuse, right? We were all still living with our parents, but we had an excuse to like not be supervised, because we had those school hours, those in college, those right. hours where we were alone and all that kind of stuff. And so we all just went, and we accepted these invitations to hang out with this band. And it started off very fun. A lot of times people will hear that story and they'll be like, okay, well, you went and then you were trafficked. But no, actually, that hanging out lasted for about 6 months. Like, we kept going back, we kept hanging out, a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. That's what it looked like. That's what the introduction to, trafficking looked like for me. After just the, hanging out as a group. So the group of my friends and this band, hanging out with this band. After about 6 months or so, the invitation started to change to where the individual who was the leader of this particular band and this guy group started to send solo invitations to me. So it was no longer, hey girls, come hang out with us. It was, hey Kathy, I want you to come hang out with me. And we're talking about, again, the leader, the most charming, the most handsome, the most talented, the most gifted, knew how to play the most instruments, had the best voice. And in a live audience, I often look out into the crowd and ask all of my ladies, like, if this was you, young, we all have insecurities, and
Right.
this guy, someone like this, asks you to hang out with him or invite you out with him, is your response going to be yes or no? And always every lady's like, yeah, I would have gone. And that's exactly
Right.
what I did. It's exactly what I did. I accepted that invitation. And it was very quick, it seemed like, that I fell for this guy. And it turned into a full-blown relationship in my mind, because the relationship looked like he was asking me everything about, he wants to know every detail about my life, what I liked to do, what I like to eat, and everything. So to me, I'm thinking that this is a relationship. And that lasted for about a year. And it was at the end of that year that he invited me to join him on a business venture. And the idea he had was to start his own record label at that time. There were no red flags because of what he was already doing. Hey, I'm going to start my label. It made sense to me. What didn't make sense to me was why he was asking me to go, because I didn't have any knowledge of business or music at that time. So I didn't know what I could bring to the table. But he was very affirming in his response. And he stated, I just want you to be a part of my team. Like, I can't do this without you. It's you and me, against the world and all of that. And of course, again, I look out into the audience and say, would you have gone? And so I did. I did go. And what happened during that time that he was what I thought was a dating relationship, what happened during that time was his grooming process. He was getting to know me. He was getting to know my insecurities. And also in that time, he was pulling me away from my support network. So my entire world started to kind of just revolve around him. Anything he said, I just did. I didn't even know that I was in that. He alienated me from, my mom and my family, my friends.
Now, had they all met
Isolated.
him? Your mom and all them had met him, or?
No, we had some friends that met him. I had, obviously, the friends that I was with met him, but he never met my mom. And very strategic. And it never even rung a bell to me, like, well, why don't you want to? Very strategic in not meeting my mom and my family. But caused a divide because he would plant things in my head like, well, aren't you a little too old to be still living with your parents, like still living with your mom? Don't you want to be out on your own? You're kind of immature if you're in college and you're still living with your parents. Like, how old are you? Like, come on now. And so things like that. And I would start to feel like, yeah, I should be out, It was just a form of manipulation.
He was very, very strategic.
Yeah. And that's one of the many things.
So now, did he ever talk to you about his parents, or like, did he ever talk about his mom?
Talked about his family, but also never brought me around his family.
And never did. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what would you say then was like the paradigm shift for you to do what he wanted? Was it the fact that, was it kind of, do you feel like he was kind of guilting and shaming you, if that's what I'm hearing in a bit, as far as, well, aren't you too old? Or, but was it also a drive of yours, just, I guess, to share that life, and also money? Because, I mean, he kind of promised you a career. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I thought I was in love. So the physical manipulation, abuse, and all of that it started after. But I say that the mental and emotional chains are stronger than the physical ones, and I still believe that today. That's very true, actually. So in this grooming process, when he got me to say yes, and the plan was to move from Houston, Texas, to go to Dallas, Texas for 3 months, to meet with some investors and stuff, it sounded like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be gone for 3 months. I still didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing. I just knew that I was going to be gone for 3 months.
Right.
And, he made it seem like it was going to be admin type work and, things like that. When I got there, the paradigm shift was when I got there to Dallas, and walked into the hotel room, he turned into a complete different person.
Wow.
I don't know so much of if it was he turned into a complete different person, or if it was me and my eyes were finally opened, right? So he immediately he was violent, and force was used. A lot of violence was used. I was immediately beaten and told to, take off my clothes and, just to comply. Pictures were taken of me and, put, now I know they were put on like the internet and stuff like that. And so it was a very, like, in the grooming process, he was very controlling. What I didn't identify as controlling, but he was very controlling and manipulative. And then when that shift happened, he became very violent, physically violent. And so you put those two things together, my moral compass was broken down, and that's how he was able to, that's how my trafficking experience started. And I was trafficked in every form of trafficking you could think of. I was trafficked in hotel rooms, motel rooms, commercial buildings, houses, strip clubs, brothels, on the street. It was a lot. And so 3 months turned quickly into like almost a year of my life. And every moment was just survival. Like, if I do this, then maybe I can go home. If I just survive one more day, that was my mentality. If I can just survive one more day. And again, because of the trauma bond, it was hard.
So because you just said a lot of different locations that you would go to, was he with you the whole time? Is that how he kept you, say, from picking up a phone and making a call? How did he keep you under control after, the cat was out of the bag, he's abusive now? What did that look like? Did you just travel place to place with him, or he put you under someone's care to make sure you were staying hidden from public eye?
No, he didn't have to. Like I said, the emotional and mental chains were stronger than the physical ones. So because I knew, he didn't have to, he broke me down. And they go through a process, traffickers go through a process of breaking their victims down. And it's literally called breaking them down. That's what they call it. And it's, so you go through severe torture, whatever that torture may be, severe, like you can be gang raped, whatever that breaking down looks like. It is to let you know that who's in control, period. Right? There's no, there's no running, and so I was not under his, he did have people follow me and all that kind of stuff, but I was not under his watch 24/7 or every minute of the day, but it felt like I was. And then especially with the people that he exposed me to, he had police officers that he would say he was cool with, right, at clubs that he would perform at, and they knew what he was doing, and he would say things like, well, I know such and such, and he knew people of influence. And so, yeah, you put your victims out there, and they're terrified to death of like, if I make the wrong call, this could potentially like kill me. And so, yeah,
because
the
you can't
trauma
even
bond
trust the ones you're supposed to trust. You can't even trust the police.
You can't trust the police, and you can't trust yourself, because again, the psychological damage, the psychological abuse is 10 times worse than the physical abuse, honestly.
Yeah. Wow. So how does it end? You go on this for close to a year, you said, and how does the escape happen? You got away somehow. How did that happen?
There was another individual that he trafficked, and she and I had become really close behind his back. And in bringing up some of her childhood traumas and the things that she really aspired to do, and understanding that she really didn't want to be there either, it just brought up like a manifestation of trauma, and she started to became really activated, and she had a history of mental illness challenges anyways, and so everything just got really bad in a matter of 2 days. And she was she was just out of control to the point where he couldn't handle her. And because he couldn't handle her, she was drawing a lot of attention. His plan was, hey, I'm just going to get her into a hospital, have them deal with her, and then we'll just move forward. But I convinced him that we should bring her back to Houston, Texas, from Dallas, because that's where her medical team was. Medical professionals that were very familiar with her history of mental illness and challenges. So I convinced him that we should bring her back there, and he listened. And that in itself is just an act of God. That was only God, because, traffickers don't listen to their victims. However, I believe because they shared a child together, that was kind of my saving grace. Because he was a real artist. He was a real musician. So he had this fan base and a population, and even his family, that believed, oh, this is just what he does for money. This other side could damage, you know what I mean? Like it could put him in jail. Let's just say that, if the wrong people knew exactly what he was doing.
Right.
And so he couldn't face that. If she goes missing, the mother of his child, if she goes missing, then there's a lot of explaining to do. And so I believe that that's why he listened. And so we got her back. Got back to Houston, and I started to get really activated myself, I guess, when I got back in familiar surroundings, and I started to see, oh my gosh, like I started to remember who Kathy was, because Kathy was non-existent. Kathy did not exist out there. I was completely, my identity was completely stripped away, and the trauma bond was really, really strong. And so I began to have my I call it manifestation of trauma. And it was too familiar to him and too soon, because we had just gotten her into a hospital in Houston. And so he was just like, you know what, just call whoever you need to call, and I'll pick you up tomorrow. So he allowed me to call my brother and my sister-in-law to come pick me up. And, he acted like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with her. Please help her. He acted like the caring boyfriend again at that point. And they came and picked me up, and his plan was, he told me, okay, I'll come pick you up tomorrow morning. And honestly, I would have gone. If he would have picked me up the next morning, I would have gone, because I didn't know who Kathy was anymore. I was the person that he had broken me down to. I didn't feel a sense of belonging here anymore, like in regular society. I didn't know how I was supposed to go back to church or school or be around family after what had happened to me. I felt filthy. And so he was the only person that I actually wanted to be around. And then, again, that's what we call trauma bond. But he underestimated the power of my support system. So it was my family who, they didn't know what trafficking was either. And I wasn't speaking. I was pretty much mute when I got back, with them anyways, because I wouldn't talk to anyone but him. But because of my condition, I was severely underweight. I didn't look good. And I wasn't speaking. They were like, we don't know what happened or where you've been, but you're not going back with him. And they were very, they took that stance, and they didn't shake. And it was them, and God using them to really create that divide that I needed. And it was time. The more that they kept me away from him, it was time that helped me understand, oh wow, that was bad. It wasn't trafficking, because I still didn't know what that was, but it was bad enough for me not to want it. And that took a lot of time. And so that's how I exit. That was my exit.
Wow. Whew. So that's an amazing, amazing testimony. I'm trying not to tear up here, just imagining it. I think the part for me that is really surprising is how it imprisoned you mentally. You started out as someone totally different, and transformed to someone, the power that someone can hold over in that aspect. And it's not the scenario that it happened in. It's just young people you don't have to be young. I'm in my 40s. You can be in your 40s, and be in that scenario of just going out, having a social good time, and something like that happen. It's not at all what I think a lot of people think. So I appreciate, and I know that for others, it looked like something else, I'm sure, several different scenarios, but just how easy they can manipulate and do that. Was there any other part of your story that, before I have a question about your website, but that you wanted to share before I kind of left, as far as the escape portion of it?
There is so much about this story that obviously we can't fit into this time spent together. But overall, I like how you started. It looks different for everyone, and just stressing that those psychological chains are stronger than people think.
Yes. And so you have a book, correct? Is your story is in your book? Is that
Yeah, the
right?
story is the book, and the book started as just my diary. So it was just a way for me to kind of regurgitate what happened, and like I didn't know who else to talk to. I couldn't like go to my mom and be like, one day someone sold me. There was no way that I could even come to terms with that. And so for me, it was just jotting down from a perspective what happened to me, just to get it out. And
Mhm.
just through time, it was like, you know what, I started sharing bits and pieces of the book before it was actually a book, with people, and I would get the response like, "Oh my gosh, I think this happened to me," or "I know someone that this happened to," or "My gosh, this story is so similar," or "Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing because you helped me." And in seeing that it was actually helping people, just one on one, that's
Mhm.
why it became a book. I was like, well, let me just put it in a book, because people were starting to ask me about my personal experiences, and I was like, let me just put it in a book. At that time, I wasn't really able to really talk about it so much. So
Mhm.
I packed it with everything. It's super raw. So for anyone that goes out and gets it, it's super raw. There are even a couple of um, mistakes in it, like typos. And my friend was like, there's a typo here on page. And I was like, hey, I don't really care because I wrote the book and I never looked at it again. But now I'm in a different space, working on another one that is more, like can help people in a better way from this perspective. But yeah, it's out there. The Unspoken Revealed, Destined, The Unspoken Revealed.
So I ordered your book and it comes in tomorrow, and I'm ecstatic to read it. I cannot wait. I don't mind the rawness. I'm looking forward to reading it, and I would love to do a part 2 with you if possible, if you're ever open to that. But this is just so helpful. And if you don't mind, if I might use a quote from your website, it said, "Freedom isn't just about surviving; it's about thriving." And I love this. You don't want people to just survive, but thrive. And it's not to just be alive, but to live, to truly live. And so, can you just share with us real quick how you're an advocate for those who share your experience and how you help them thrive?
Absolutely. Through telling my story and sharing my personal experiences, obviously that's one part of it. And for me, a lot of people, I do a lot of public speaking and a lot of speaking, and it may seem as though like, oh, this is your career choice. No, it's actually a part of my healing journey. I believe that restoration is a lifelong process. So the more that I can help and share is healing for me. And so that's one way that I'm helping and giving back. The other way is through 1211 and mentoring individuals and walking alongside individuals to let them know that there is a community of people out here that actually do care. One of the scariest things about getting out of the life of trafficking and exiting the life of trafficking is, who's going to believe me? Who's going to look at me as a person? I'm only going to be viewed as this filthy, thing that experienced all this trauma. No one's ever going to look at me as a person. I'm here to let people know that yes, you are a person. You're a person that's loved and honored and cared about. And you have a name. You're a person first. Your trauma is just something that you have, that happened to happen to you, right? It's not who you are, right? And so we do that through 1211. So mentorship, we say mentorship, but it's a little bit deeper than that. It's more than just cheering people on. It's literally walking in the trenches with people as they are on their way to overcoming.
Awesome. So, as you know, how, as a community of someone just sitting here listening, obviously, how can we help them thrive? I know hearing it's one thing, and having knowledge to kind of maybe notice if we notice trafficking is going on, or keeping ourselves out of a trafficking situation. But how, if getting involved would be much more helpful, what do we do? What does that look like if someone's listening? I mean, what are some things? Is there a website to go, some resources, anything that we can do?
Yeah, one thing that I would say is just keep it really practical, because if we think of it as like this big, big, big ocean of problems, it sounds overwhelming. And the first response to that is, you know what? I just want to walk away. I can't even deal with that. But if we bring it down to our communities, who's around you? What's your circle of influence? Your family, start there. Start having, number one, the conversations, show up and understand that, hey, bad things happen in our communities and trafficking is one of them. And it's okay to acknowledge that and be okay to start addressing that, right? We have to have the conversations around it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is reach out to organizations. If you don't know where to start, reach out to organizations within your own communities. Type in your zip code, anti-trafficking, and organizations should pop up. Give them a call and say, I'm interested in helping. What do you have for me? Like, how can I volunteer? What do you need? What are some of your needs? If that organization doesn't have anything, move on to the next and figure out where you fit in. More practical things that I can say is showing up for survivors and overcomers of trafficking. And that means everything that you've learned to be where you are today, as successful as you are today, the mom that you are today, the father that you are today, the good friend that you are today, all of those life skills that you use to be the person that you are today, those are some of those skills that people need. So if you're really good in an area, if you know that you're really skilled in like conflict resolution or like accounting, or how to like just love on people, those are skills that you can bring to overcomers and survivors of trafficking directly, and very, very practical ways.
Awesome. Kathy, thank you so much. You are such a blessing, and we just appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And we are going to definitely make sure we're posting all the links below for you. People can go to your website, get your book, and we're looking forward to the next one as well. And also we'll put a link there for Sevu if people are interested in another layer of security of keeping you safe. But we just really appreciate you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And I pray you have a blessed day, and I look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for highlighting this very important issue.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone for watching this episode. We appreciate you as well. God bless and have a safe day.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Safe, Secure, and Empowered 24/7 podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please click the like button, share, and subscribe to follow us. We would love to hear from you, so please take a moment and leave a comment. You can also find us at our website, www.parkeriot.solutions.com. Make sure you follow us on social media. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Until next time, thank you for tuning in.